Hey, and we're recording. All
Hey!
right. Brother Parth in Missouri at the pool. It's all rose and oysters.
Here we are, beach bumming.
That's how it should be.
I know, man.
Uh, the, beach bumming in Missouri, the Bicentennial annual communication.
Here we are.
So let's start with that.
Yeah,
Tell me just, I was lucky enough I came up with Brother Randy Sanders.
yeah.
I think you got here about the same time we did. What's it been like so far for the last couple of days?
So the last couple of days have been amazing. One of my... You're here. Where are you
Oh,
from?
look at me, yes.
Okay. So the most amazing thing, and the reason I keep coming back to Grand Lodge, is because I get to see guys who I don't normally see. And there are brothers here who I see maybe twice or three times a year. And, we see each other, hey, how's it going? How are you, brother? And big old hug, and then kind of pick up right where you left off. And it's one of those really fun bonding moments. It's also fun, the guys are here, and they're, what they're doing is they're also hanging out and really kind of cultivating that mystic tie. And that, to me, is so important. Component of brotherhood. It's absolutely everything.
How would you define that? A mystic tie.
How would I define that? It's something I think that probably transcends time and space, which is why it's mystic, right? So you and we've chatted a couple times before, right? We've transcended time and space through that process, right? In the sense of we've transcended space, and when you got here, immediately it was, hey, how are you, brother? And then you think about the rich Masonic past, present, and then even future, and how many hundreds of thousands of brothers do we have in that? That's what makes it mystical, in my opinion.
And I mean that always brings up the challenging question about not just a Grand Lodge, but lodges. The administration versus the esoteric side of it versus I guess
Yeah.
when you're looking at the craft, do you feel that there's been a good balance? Do you think we are leaning too much to, say, the administrative side versus the esoteric side? Like, do you think we're doing enough to cultivate those mystic ties or those ritualistic ties?
I think that it's sort of on a spectrum, and at different times you'll find different things, right? Like you find that there are times where people are looking more for esoterics. There are times where people are looking more for fellowship. There are times where people are more into the administrative stuff and really kind of getting into the weeds and things like that. But again, I think that the big thing here, right? So we talked about sort of three big things within Freemasonry, right? We talk about brotherly love, we talk about relief, and we talk about truth. And I've kind of always put it this way. So I can go out and I can try to do 23 hours worth of charitable work, right? And leave myself 1 hour for eating, sleeping, everything else I have to get done in the day, right? And you and another brother can come into the room, and both of you can give 12 hours of your time, and you've already outworked one, right? Now, three of you can get together and do 8, right? So it's that brotherhood component. And the same thing works for truth, in my opinion, right? I can have all sit in this nice big tree here and attain enlightenment tomorrow, right? And if I don't have anybody to share that with, it's fairly hollow, in my opinion, right? I mean, we talk about the great spiritual masters, right? You talk about any of them, the Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, talk about whoever you want to talk about. The amazing thing isn't that they found some form of enlightenment, right? It's that they came back and they shared it with the rest of the world. So it's that brotherhood component that I think will always kind of cultivate the various things that are needed. They all have their own purpose, and they can give a man something different for they can give him what he needs at that time.
Do you think, or how does a man, and this is always one of those things that sounds generational, but I don't mean in a generational perspective. I just mean like the time, 2021. How do you think a man could go about finding balance in his life in 2021? Because I suspect that, because I grew up Masonically, right? My dad is a Freemason. My whole family going back very far with Freemasons, and it feels and it seems to me, based on my experiences growing up and talking to my father, that my dad and certainly my grandparents, my grandfathers, had time for Freemasonry in a way that I'm not sure men do in 2021 necessarily. That the demands on time seem to be so much greater. Or is that not the case? It seems that way because of the social media having everything at you all at once. Or do you think it's just harder in 2021 for men to find balance in their lives, Masonically or just in general?
I think probably balance is hard to find, for me at least. It's hard to find right off the bat, and what's really difficult is that that's a struggle I think that everybody has, right? There are only 24 hours in the day. I wish, right, that there were 36, but I have a sneaking suspicion, right, that if I asked for a 36-hour day and I got it tomorrow, I'd probably be asking for a 48-hour day 2 days later. And so I think that's just it's part and parcel of life. When it comes to that's in terms of life, right? I think that's a struggle that's always there, and if somebody figures it out, give me my phone number. But by that same token, within the fraternity, I think the biggest thing that you really have to do is find out what interests you, okay, and go down that rabbit hole and find that personal satisfaction first, because I feel that if you as a member are satisfied, right, and you're getting what you need, then when the craft needs something from you, you are going to be much better placed in order to serve.
The idea of service is an interesting one. Masonically, it's interesting. I've one of the questions that I think every Mason struggles with when somebody's asking them about the craft, or asking about potentially joining or being initiated, they're asked, what does Freemasonry offer to me? What will it provide to me? I've become more and more a fan of saying, Freemasonry provides nothing to you, which is not true, obviously, but I say it's not what Freemasonry can provide to you. If you're joining Freemasonry, it should be primarily out of a desire to serve. Because I've always viewed Freemasonry as first and foremost joining it as an act of service to one's community, even to one's country. Because this may sound hokey, but I truly believe that Freemasonry makes a community and by extension the world a better place. And if you're joining a lodge and you're of service to it, the reason to join is to be of service to that lodge and thereby service to the community as a whole. So that's kind of how I've got around this question of what can Freemasonry offer me, by just saying, it's not about what it can offer you, it's about what you can offer to it.
And you know what? I think it's an interesting idea. I was actually having lunch with the brothers in my lodge, and we were kind of talking about some of the ins and outs, right? And we were talking about Freemasonry as a business, right? You're here, when somebody, to a certain extent, when somebody asks you what Freemasonry is, right, you kind of put on your best sales pitch. But I find that a lot of times your pitch falls short. At least mine does, okay? And today at lunch, actually, we just had this conversation about why that is. It's because that again, to use a business term, right? The product that you're putting out is so robust. It's such a, right? It's such a multifaceted product, right? We likened it to a productivity suite, right? In the sense that, you know, you have Microsoft Word, Excel, you know, Access, Outlook, all these different things. Right now, if I wanted to, right, I could take Excel and I could write a document out in Excel if I really wanted to. It's possible, right? But Word is a much better suited product for that. Whereas if I want to do, you know, pivot tables and, you know, complex mathematical equations, well, sure, Word has that functionality, but it's much better suited for Excel. You can kind of do the same thing, you know, just change the words Word and Excel out for, you know, esotericism and charitable contributions, and you know, you can take a Freemason who's interested in esoterics and he'll do charity for you, sure, right? But he's probably better suited for that facet. So what you really kind of need to do is we've got this amazing concept that we call Freemasonry, right? But really identifying where the niche is for somebody, again, I think helps fulfill them, which then goes and kind of does what you were talking about, which is helps them go out and fulfill a larger need in the community.
To what extent is what you're talking about emblematic of, and you brought this up last night as well, emblematic of a failure on the part of Freemasonry to adequately vet applicants, in the sense that it's very hard to, you know, when an applicant comes in and asks, you know, what can Freemasonry do for me? That's such a hard question to answer unless you know that applicant well.
Yeah.
And so instead of perhaps too often giving like a pat, you know, it'll make a good man better or whatever it is, you know, you can maybe answer that question after knowing him for a year of being like, well, I've learned that you really enjoy
and that's
charity.
So we've kind of been having this conversation. I am incredibly lucky. I come from an urban lodge. We have a decent number of members that are active and get together and do things outside of lodge, and even do things in the lodge, you know, and so it's, I don't necessarily think that that's the norm, right? There are pockets, I think, but, you know, we hear some horror stories where, you know, an applicant will come in and they'll hand him a petition, and then, you know, he comes back in 2 weeks, he's investigated. He comes back in 2 weeks, he's initiated. He comes back in 2 weeks and he's gone through a C2A class, and so now he's a Master Mason, and they hand him the junior deacon's rod and they go, here you go, right? And they're barely having enough people to open a lodge. And we hear these stories and you kind of, and here's my thing is like, I get it, you guys need members, but I remember several years ago there's a past Grand Master who was really poignant, really kind of hit home with me, and it was give the gift, guard the gate. And both of those statements can be equally true at the same time, right? Absolutely, freely give the gift of Freemasonry, right? But by that same token, also make it so that you, when you're initiating a guy, you know him, right? You, have you ever done any courtesy degree work or anything like that? Like, have you ever gone to see anything like that? A lot of times they have little slips of paper that they have, right? And they hand those out. We don't need those, right? Because we know these guys, and we try to meet them. Even, like, for instance, we started doing social events where prospective members can come and hang out and get to know us outside of the four walls of that lodge. So when he does come in, it's not like, hey, who's that guy? Right? We know him, and he knows us by that same token. So it's is it a failure? Probably. Probably. Like, I hate to put it that way, but I think we
all speak for ourselves. Nobody from Grand Lodge of Ontario get mad at me.
right. Nobody from Grand Lodge, Missouri, get mad at me, but we're Ontario. Try not to piss off
I don't want
international jurisdictions.
Nobody from Missouri be upset with me. You guys have more guns here, I'm told. So
yeah.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah.
But
I think it's okay. It's okay to mess up, right? It's okay to mess up as long as we're cognizant of it, and as long as that we don't continue to make those mistakes.
well, is that also? I've been on this hobby horse for a while. I think somewhere along the way, Freemasonry became too membership focused, to the point that Freemasonry became a binary question of, if you're a member, you can contribute to the craft. If you're not a member, you can't.
Yeah.
So you would see, for example, if somebody were to say, I'm not interested in joining Freemasonry, the response would be to either keep harassing them to join until they grow to hate you, or you just dismiss them in terms of like, okay, well, we're not going to discuss Freemasonry at all.
Right. So.
Whereas there's room for people to be supportive of the craft, but may not, for whatever reason, want to join.
We can be friends. You don't have to be a Freemason.
Well,
so I think, right. I mean, I agree with you, right? And I think that again, in my opinion, don't hound somebody for it. Show them through the body of your work, right? Show them through the body of your work. Oh, show them something that they would want to be a part of.
But even that, like, how do I put this? Well, like, this podcast is a great example.
Sure.
I very much hope that Freemasons watch and get something from this that can help them within their journey.
Yeah.
But I'm also very much hoping non-Freemasons can watch this and find something of value. An equivalent would be mixed martial arts, MMA.
Yeah.
They're not. Dana White is not going around going, Are you in a mixed martial arts gym?
Right.
If the answer is no, oh well, then you won't like this, right?
Right.
They recognize that there are some things. I understand people say, well, mixed martial arts is a public forum,
Sure.
but there are plenty of things that can be done in Freemasonry that are accessible to the public. This podcast
Right.
that are of interest to the public, and you can develop relationships with, you can develop relationships with businesses. You can develop relationships with temples. You can organize tours of your temple, and even if they don't want to join, they may love historical buildings. And you create almost a category of the focus starts off with, is the Masonic Lodge respected within the community? And if it starts with that, you have Masonic fans.
I think you got to almost take it back one step. If you take it back one step, you have to ask, is the Masonic organization known in your community? A lot of times, I think the answer is probably no. And it is what it is in that regard. But I think to go back to that question and really pick it apart, I think that if we were to say, I agree with you on a fundamental level. I think we got a little hungry in terms of numbers. We started seeing massive numbers, and even now, right? I don't think it's a numbers problem. I'll go back to the quality problem, right? You can have a bunch of them, sure. I would rather take 10 good Freemasons than 100.
Now the numbers principle of it to what extent do you think that is? Because I've heard some Masons say, actually, almost with those numbers you used, say you need to initiate 100 to get 10 good ones, and I've heard others say, no, you can avoid that by just doing your due diligence at the start.
I'm with that second group. I think in that if you do the due diligence at the start, it's not a sales team in that regard, right? We talked about the business component of Freemasonry, right? But it's not a restaurant where I have to hire 100 servers and maybe 10 of them will stick around, right? It's not something like that. If I hire 10 good people to begin with, it's going to save me a lot of headache and heartache. So, I think you can, right? I think there are certain things, right? If you're a recruiter or something like that for an organization, or a talent acquisition specialist, right? Sure, you have to play a numbers game a little bit. But here, even then, I think a lot of those people, their job, right, is to identify good talent, or find good Freemasons. You can do that at the beginning. You don't have to have those 90 drop off for non-payment of dues. I mean,
That's an interesting question. I wonder if there is a lodge out there. Like, I know some jobs and some professions and recruiters, they'll actually have like personality tests that they'll do with applicants, and they'll just recognize, and it's not a slight against the applicant. It's just they recognize that certain types of people who score a certain way on this test will do well in this position. Others who score differently won't. That'd be interesting to see if there's actually ever experiments done on which Masons stay, which Masons go. Do they have a personality type that's identifiable, and then do we correct for that in future applicants?
I think that the more interesting thing. So when applicants come to Gateway, we tell them, we go, hey, have you visited any other lodges in your area, or in the area? A lot of times the answer is no. We tell them, we say, hey, go hang out with some other people. We have a vibe, we have a flow, and we have the things that we like to do and all that jazz. Excuse me. And you may find out that, hey, there's this other lodge that's close by, maybe meets on a different night or something like that. And you may hang out with those guys and like them a whole lot, right? Again. And then we see that brother, eventually later on at a session like this or an area meeting or something. How's it going, brother? Right? Because, again, I think that that's part of that vetting process, right? You may be able to be a good Freemason, absolutely, right? But find the guys who so give yourself the best shot at success in that regard. And I think that's something that I try, again, I would rather have a good Freemason come into the fraternity and not my lodge, right? Instead of that guy walking away because he didn't find what he was looking for at my lodge. Because there are other lodges out there, absolutely there. So.
A lot of those lodges are here this the last couple of days.
Yeah,
which
almost
has been
200 of them.
Missouri is such it's just so interesting to see. It's such a rural state. And all these farmhouse type lodges and country lodges.
Yeah.
I come from Windsor, which has like one Masonic Temple right downtown.
Yeah.
I love I love traveling all the time and visiting any Masonic lodge, but it certainly is a lot of fun visiting in Missouri. How in Missouri, I know that everybody was locked down for a while.
Yeah.
We're still suspended from in-person meetings in Ontario.
Okay.
Which I'll never knock any Grandmaster for making their decisions, because they're the ones who have to decide.
Ones. It really does.
But just so I don't mean this in any way. Nobody from Ontario get mad at me. Follow Grand Lodge. But in Missouri, how has it been reopening? I think you've been back to in-person meetings for a couple months now. And I guess, have you returned to visitation, and has it been? How's it been getting back?
We have, and so getting back has been a dream. Some of us weren't. Grand Lodge last year was held, but it was held in a very, almost a bare bones. Everybody was, spread out, masked, and everything. All the protocols were followed, and but the vast membership that we have here this year I wasn't able to come last year, and so it's been amazing, right? Because you don't see something, like I said. One of the big reasons I come down is I hang out with a lot of these guys and see them, and after 2 years being able to do that, it's been a breath of fresh air, man.
And did you find, either in Gateway or just in your experience speaking with other Masons, any trepidation amongst members about returning? Was there any nerves, especially maybe older or compromised Masons, or was everybody just super excited? Or a combination?
I think it's probably a combination. Now, the thing is at least I've tried very hard to make sure that everyone feels like they're in a safe environment, right? Now, if that means that, hey, a brother's just we're not gonna shake hands for a little while, okay, by all means. If that means that, hey, you're masking up, by all means, right? For sure. It means if, something is, at the end of the day, it's about the comfort of the brother, right? You want that brother to feel comfortable with whatever they're doing. And so, I don't think, I don't really think that there's been, you see the guys you see, you don't see the guys you don't see, and you love and accept both of them for what they are, right? And you understand at the end of the day. So.
Now, something I want to talk to you about, we talked about this offline.
Yeah.
I talked about, one thing I enjoy is different, not Masonic dress per se, but formal dress, right? Where people are wearing different things to a lodge.
Yeah.
In Ontario, we have the dress code regarding, and in Ontario, I've said it's very specific.
Yeah.
Which I'm not a fan of myself, but I do like the idea of formal wear in lodge, and I love it when different brethren will wear to lodge. Cultural is one term, but also even like widow sons wearing their leathers, right?
Absolutely.
I love that stuff. And you're wearing formal wear.
Yeah, I'm wearing a full formal Indian outfit today.
So is this something you wear to lodge?
So I've started wearing things like this to lodge. For me, it's a point of pride, and I don't particularly get to wear these types of formal outfits very often. So it's fun for me to be able to wear that. And it helps me connect a little bit with my cultural background, which is Indian, so it's great for that function.
I mean, I don't want to get you in trouble, so...
no, not at all.
But, not to give you a controversial topic, but
okay.
What are your thoughts on dress codes? Because I understand Missouri, there is no dress code.
There is no dress code in Missouri.
Ontario has one. I've seen both jurisdictions with and without. Just what are your thoughts on dress codes?
I think as long as you wear the best clothes that you have, right? I agree. Like I said, I like dressing up. I think it's fun. I think it's festive. It kind of sets a certain tone. But by that same token, Freemasonry regards no man for their exterior qualities, right? It's about what's inside as well. So if you put your best foot forward, I don't see any reason why, whatever that may be, right? It's a highly individual thing for everyone, right? By that same token, I say, there are guys where I'll talk to them and they'll go, I'd rather see a brother at lodge, even if he's just getting off of work. And it's happened to me, I work for a large corporation, and so I come into work, I have a uniform, and so I come in and, sometimes I'll come to lodge straight from work, and I didn't think I was going to be able to make it, and then all of a sudden, here I am. Or, even afterwards, when the guys are kind of wrapping up, hanging out after the meeting. So.
Is there, is it like, is it a actually specific, like, prohibition per se? So, like, is there something in the Constitution in Missouri that specifically prohibits a lodge from setting a dress code, or can individual lodges themselves set dress codes?
Hey, again, remember, I don't speak for any Grand Lodge. I don't speak for any no function like that. But from my understanding, there's nothing that prohibits it explicitly, but in an implicit way, in a roundabout fashion. I think that it's sort of implied.
It's always.
But I mean, Missouri, like you said, man, it's a wild state. Insofar as you get guys who come in 3-piece, full tailored, suits and tails and top hats. You also go out to some of these country kind of bumpkin lodges, and you'll find guys in bib overalls, or so it's a wide spectrum, I think, and I don't know.
Makes it fun for visiting, right?
It does. Yeah, it does.
Do you as we talk about reopening and all that good stuff and Freemasonry's getting back there, what are some things in your Masonic journey that you're most looking forward to, that you're most excited about?
I am really excited. I'm really excited just to be within physical proximity and being able to talk to guys and have conversations about things that interest people in a physical sense, and so it's always nice. It's Freemasonry is, I think, made leaps and bounds really over the course of the pandemic in terms of the technology world. It's really come such a far way. You think back, a year and a half ago, right? If you would have told a bunch of guys that, hey, you're gonna get on your phone or on your computer and use an application called Zoom, and that's how you're gonna primarily interact with your brothers for 8 months, 10 months, they would have laughed you out of the room. And yet, that same technology is now being used, and I mean, it's opened up that global component to it,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Ontario to Missouri to, it's a podcast. We've had brothers from India, South Africa, England. So, and I understand even voting last year was voting in Ontario was digital, virtual. But I understand last year it was virtual here in Missouri. You could vote.
I went in, so I'm not totally sure on that one.
Do you think that this is something I've asked a few Masons about, and it seems like a pretty consistent answer so far. Do you think that going forward, how much of the virtual do you see remaining, even as lodges are able to meet in person?
I think you'll see it. It's not going. I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think it's going to completely be phased out, because now that we've got the technology, I think it's opened up so many avenues for us, right? Here in Missouri, we have the Truman Lecture Series, right? So that's something that's put on by the Missouri Lodge of Research, right? And we've had international speakers. Right? Previously, we would have flown in. We've had people from all over the country who've now been able to sort of, they don't have to leave the comfort of their home, and we can still put on this awesome presentation for them and give them amazing content in that regard, while we're also not incurring, we're not spending days traveling, stuck up in a hotel room, it's provided, I think, a lot of flexibility where previously there wasn't. And I think the other really big thing that's done for me personally, at least, is it's opened up so many different avenues. I think about just the amount of people I've gotten to meet through that whole process. So many new brothers. It's hard to actually count. And I think that part of it's probably not done.
And speaking of going somewhere,
Yeah.
I think it's about time. I think we have a
Oh,
dinner to get to.
We do have a dinner to get to, don't we?
And then
All right.
breakfast tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Oh boy.
Which Lodge of Research, I'm putting you on blast. What type of monsters at Grand Lodge are like, let's have breakfast at 7 a.m.?
Yep.
I can't promise you I'll be at my best at this 7 a.m. breakfast.
A few rarely are on the second day of Grand.
Well, we'll make it through. Well, I mean, you guys have been celebrating with. Give a shout out to Wood Hat Spirits.
Yeah.
Randy. Is Randy still here?
Randy's here.
Nice. I thought he might be taking off this afternoon.
I thought he was staying until tomorrow. Maybe.
Well,
We'll find him.
If he is still here, yeah, we'll find him. If not,
Yeah.
thank you, Randy, for the ride and for Wood Hat for
Yeah.
supplying the brethren. Did you have a chance to partake in some
I
of the?
did. That was particularly delicious.
There you go. Shout out to Wood Hat.
Wood Hat doing great things. Keep going.
And shout out to we should shout out to this place, beautiful hotel, and they've been a great venue.
Yeah. This venue is fantastic. It's the Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah, Holiday Inn Express.
And then the Drury, like it's been good.
Yeah, it's been good, and it reminds me of Psalm 133, which a lot of Freemasons are of course familiar with. A lot of non-Freemasons can open a Bible and check it out, and it really just kind of it's a good time to. It's a pleasure to have you. Thanks for coming out all the way too, by the way. So shout out to you on your own podcast.
I just took a wrong turn. I was going to the store, hang a left instead of a right, and luckily I had my dues card with me. So
yeah, and here you are, in the state of misery.
State of misery, the show me state.
Show me state.
Well, thank you. It's been great getting to know you through Randy Sanders, through the Masonic Happy Hour. Just before we take off, if any of my Ontario brethren or just anybody watching this, Masons are lucky enough to get the chance to be in Missouri, particularly around yourself, where around the St. Louis O'Fallon area.
Yeah.
Where's Gateway Lodge?
So Gateway Lodge.
How do they get in touch with you?
Absolutely. So Gateway Lodge is it's in St. Louis. It's a little bit further east than Wentzville, which I believe you went to Wentzville
Yes.
Lodge.
Yeah.
So it's further east. It's closer to the city of St. Louis. Lodge has a website. Look us up. Our secretary is on top of it. Shout out to Brother Michael Boyd. Really on top of it in terms of getting back to guys. And what is it? Oh boy, first and third Tuesdays, I think. Dinner at 6:30.
Well, there'll be some comments if you're wrong.
I'm sure there will be.
There'll be some comments from your brother.
Look, man, it's not the first time I've been wrong, and it won't be the last. So.
There you go. Alrighty.